Hey folks, Zach Hammondtree here. I was requested to do a video on how to locate carp and buffalo. I'd hoped to be a little bit more detailed in this video, but I'm going to kind of keep it kind of simple. So first, this is one of my favorite carp spots. Now, we don't get buffalo in here because we're in the back of a cove that's in the back of a cove, and the buffalo really don't travel in here that much. I've yet to catch one out of the past couple years of fishing this spot. So one of the things that one of the reasons why I started fishing this spot is I'm gonna get down here by the water. Is now the water's low right now, which can work as an advantage. You have there's silt, but there's also rock. It's kind of mixed. So this would be gravel bottom. I'm gonna try not to shine y'all too much in with the sun, but on this far bank here, which is where I started fishing, there's grass, there's aquatic vegetation along that bank line. And so I started fishing on that side. Now what I was doing was pre-baiting, and now personally I pre-bait with range cubes or cattle cubes. You can get those at your local like cattle feed supply store. So I like using those. I've tried using like deer corn and boiling it down, or hen scratch and boiling it down, and chopped corn and boiling it doing, and I never catch anything on it, or catch very little on it. So I like using the range cubes. It's got plenty of attractant to it. But I would come out early in the morning and you can see the fish jump, or rolling as we say, and or showing. The UK guys say, oh, the carp are showing. And so when you see those fish, I mean, you know that they're there. Other factors to look for is presence of waterfowl. So on this lake, and most lakes that I know of, ducks and geese are very popular. Well, ducks and geese in the water do what? They poop. Well, because of what they eat, they don't really usually digest it very well. But it's not necessarily that the carp or buffalo are eating that. It's the algae and stuff like that that is involved with it, you know, that come from that being deposited into the water. So the algae and vegetation, stuff like that. The vegetation is a key thing that I look for. If I find vegetation, then I bait my spots. If it's legal where you are, it is legal here. I bait, and I bait for 3 days before I ever even think about fishing, because I have carp at home in an aquarium, and it took that fish. At the time I had several fish, and unfortunately they've died, but the fish, they learn that the sound of the pellets hitting the water is food in about 3 days. And I've repeated this, that was a theory at first, and then I've repeated it several times in different places, and that has proven true. Yeah, if I go out and throw, now if there's fish already there and they're pretty thick, say like on Belton Lake in Texas, I don't have to pre-bait. I just go out there and start fishing, and you can catch fish. Here on Toledo, the fish are here, but we have 1,200 miles of shoreline. It's, I don't remember, I think, I'm pretty sure over 1 million acres of water, a surface area. So the fish are here, but they're so widespread out that you have to feed them to get them in a certain area to start feeding. So that's why I pre-bait. And like I said, I pre-bait with the generic just range cubes, or cattle cubes as they're called sometimes, and that's going to put your food in there. The problem is that does also attract turtles and catfish, which are a huge problem down here in the south. if you're in a northern area, it may not be that big of an issue. So yeah, so as far as locating the fish, you first off, early mornings and watch the water, especially this time of year. Nights, it's starting to get cooler at night. Those fish are more active at night, and early mornings you can actually see them rolling. Now if you're out in the middle of the night, you're not going to see them, but you can hear them. Well, if you haven't really learned the sound of these fish hitting the surface, you might not be able to recognize, okay, that's a bass, or that's a carp or a buffalo, or that's something else hitting the top of the water. So I mean, they're out here. I've had loons, type of bird, aquatic bird, out here, and they dive, and when they dive, them trying to swim, they'll stir up the water and it'll splash. And there have been times I've been out here at night going, oh man, these carp are rolling all over the place. They're rolling like crazy. And then the sun come up, might be fishing at 5 o'clock in the morning, sun come up and it's loons, and as they dive, they'll splash. I was like, man, oh, these were fish. I was wondering why I wasn't catching it. And it's because the loons are chasing the fish around. But yeah, so the number one thing is visibly seeing the fish. If you can't visibly see the fish and confirm that that's what it is, then it's harder to know the fish are there. Now you can watch some videos on looking for fish for carp and buffalo, and a lot of guys from UK, they say, oh, the churned up silt, which can be a visual to look for. However, where like right here, believe it or not, it gets to 40 foot deep out here. So you're not going to be able to have that visual. Then they'll say, well, the bubbles, from them feeding on the bottom, a really silty bottom, which can be true. However, what also feeds on the bottom? Turtles. Turtles will be digging through there, and they'll kick up the trapped gases, and you'll have bubbles come up. So my thing is watching for the fish. Now, of course, you can't just go out and just sit in a spot and watch the water for the fish most of the time. Most of us aren't going to do that. So really, it's find a location that you think the fish may be in by the vegetation, or well, mostly the vegetation, knowing that there's something on the bottom to attract them. And then also you can just go to an area and then bait up. And I'd say if you're going to use the cattle cubes, buy you a scoop. Not going to be able to get it very far, but if those fish are there, they'll come up shallow at night to feed, as they feel more protected because the sun's not out. So you throw, I'd probably say 5 good scoops full out, and then come the next day or next evening, we need to do it in the evenings. The next evening, throw about 3 out, and then stay with the 3, good full scoops, and like I said, for about 3 days. And then you should be able to maybe come early in the morning and watch and see if those fish are surfacing. If you're not seeing anything, don't get too discouraged. Keep doing it and keep watching. I'd say after the 3rd day, go ahead and put some lines in the water. Go ahead and put some lines in the water, fish it with your pack bait or your preferred method mix. And I mean, depending on what your favorite hook bait is, and sit there and go ahead and fish it. If you've been baiting up, go ahead and fish it. And yeah, maybe you get a run. And then if you do get a run, well, then the fish are there. And maybe while you're sitting there waiting on a run, you hear a splash, or you look up and you're like, okay, maybe that was a carp. Or if you don't know how to identify the sounds, because there is a distinct difference in the sounds from a largemouth bass coming up and hitting something. He's got that suction. He eats something. A gar, he comes up and he breathes air. And sometimes you really won't hear too many gar unless it's just a really big one, because they just come up and they basically float up and then have their mouth right at the top of the water, and I don't know, that was odd. My camera died for no reason. But gar, they'll come up and they'll have their snout right under the surface and then just come up and take a breath. Most small ones you're not going to hear. But a carp or a buffalo, they come up and they slap the water with their tail a lot of times. So you'll hear the splat, you know, just a loud pop with the splash. And so there's not that suction of a fish being attacked, and it's just a roll, a splash. Or even if the carp sky, you know, they jump all the way out the water. I mean, it's a large fish, and the most bass aren't going to just sky out of the water for no reason. And also they're probably not going to be 10, 15, 20 pounds. So you know, you'll hear that loud smack where that fish slaps the top of the water when it's either re-entering the water or just with its tail. So if you don't visibly see the fish jump, and I mean if you do visibly see the fish jump, you can normally tell, okay, it was orange, so it was a carp. It was a really dark color, so it was a buffalo. And of course that depends on if there's even buffalo in your area. So, and I was speaking of the waterfowl, there's ducks right there. So there's several factors that go into finding a spot. This lake in particular, like I said, it's a little bit more difficult. Also, you can use apps. When I was fishing Belton Lake a whole lot, how I found that spot, I was looking at FishBrain and seeing people posting that they were, you know, some carp being caught in at that sportsman's complex that I was fishing. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll go and try there. And paid off. It was one of my most productive spots. So yeah, hopefully this is a little bit insightful. Give it a like if you learned something, you know, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll probably go into a deeper dive once I actually get this spot baited up. It's starting to get cool again. I'm gonna start baiting real heavily and I'll probably spend the night out here, a couple nights. I actually work in this spot now, so I'll probably end up doing a overnight, probably fairly often, overnight videos once it starts getting cooler. It's still in the 90s here in Louisiana, but it's in the 60s at night, so fall is coming. So but the way if you live in the South, you know, seasons are very, very abrupt. So winter, you'll be freezing. That down here in the South, you may have heard it, may not, humidity plays a big role in temperature. I never believed it until I was in Germany and in knee-deep snow with shorts and short sleeve, and I felt just fine. Come over to Texas, where it was 45, and I had all my winter gear on and was freezing to death. So it'll be really cold one day, and the next thing you know, it's 90 degrees outside. Like, well, what's going on? Or vice versa, it's 90 degrees out here, and then, you know, in a couple of weeks it'll be in, you know, the 60s during the day, which doesn't sound bad, but when you got wind blowing like crazy, and then at night it gets down to the 30s, it's just real quick weather changes here in the South. So, but hope you guys liked it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Bye. He's gonna come up and jump. Watch out. So welcome to my show. Everybody grab your fishing pole. That's a tune. Come on now, let's go. See how